Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette. In today's episode, I'm talking with Rosalba Lopez, a STEM business coach, academic editor, and freelance medical writer. She has a PhD in biomedicine and biotechnology and built a multi-6-figure medical communications business straight out of grad school. In 2024, she launched the FLAS Foundation, where she helps STEM professionals build science communications or consulting businesses by identifying their marketable skills, offering clear, high-value services, and pitching with confidence to land their dream clients. This is quite a journey you've been on, Rosalba, and I'm looking forward to hearing about it. Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor, the podcast. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette. In 2019, I was a political science professor who was fed up with the stress and hostility of academia, not to mention the low pay. I left my tenure-track job and went from barely surviving to thriving as a freelance academic editor. Today, I own Acadia Editing Services, an editing and coaching business that brings in 6 figures a year. In this podcast, I'll discuss the challenges of academia, what academic editing involves, and what life as a freelancer looks like. If you're willing to jump outside your comfort zone, it is possible to find joy, true flexibility, and a profitable and rewarding career as an academic editor. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
So tell us about what you did in academia and your journey out and into business.
Yeah, so my academic background took a little bit of a winding turn. So I was always in arts and science, torn between the two, actually. I have a bachelor's in life science with a specialization in animal health and disease. So I wanted to become a vet back then. And then I went on and I got a master's in animal science. And from there, I discovered, so I was doing like animal IVF, essentially, like farm animals. So we worked with like pigs, water buffaloes, cows, quite different than my PhD work, which was in like mice and humans. So yeah, from there, I discovered fertility preservation. So so you know how people can, women can freeze their eggs or the embryos. That's usually the typical path that you hear about. Well, there's this other technique that's, I guess, less common or less spoken about. It's ovarian tissue transplantation. So the ovarian cortex, that holds like hundreds of eggs. So if they freeze a piece of that, that has the potential to produce like hundreds of embryo, like eggs or embryos. So yeah, I was just fascinated by that. And I was like, I need to learn more about this, really dedicate my career to that. So I moved to Spain for my PhD. Essentially, I'm from Montreal, but I moved to Spain to specialize in that technique. And then I guess the PhD, maybe it was like a cultural shift or just the PhD experience not going as planned or as expected. So I had to do stuff not independently. I like, not that I was expecting my supervisors to hold my hand, but you know, like you as a PhD, or maybe it's a bit more of a shock when you're in a lab that collaborates with each other very much and are very like close knit, and then going to another lab where it's very like more competitive. So yeah, like it was a weird situation. Like my experiments, I got negative results. Like the experiment should have worked, but it didn't. So then we had to try to figure out why it didn't. Anyways, started to get a little discouraged and started to look for alternative careers. And I was like, how else can I make an impact in people's lives without going through the like cutthroat academic route, right? And so I turned to the internet and found a blog post, I think of like 14 alternative PhD careers. And one of those was medical writing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I like writing. I'm good at writing. And then I realized like, that's the part that I like most about the lab, right? And that my colleagues recognize my skills in is that I'm really good at communicating or organizing things in a way that makes sense, like information. And so I was intrigued. I joined the American Medical Writers Association, attended some of their conferences, took some of their online certification. So I did one certificate mini course that was how to author clinical study protocols and clinical study reports. And I thought like that would be relevant to like academia. In retrospect, now I know that they are more for regulatory writing more than scientific publications per se, but those certificates were helpful. So I had that in the back burner. Meanwhile, I was still, doing my PhD. I was also considering medical school, and then I got pregnant with my first daughter. So I was like, oh, maybe that's a sign from God that medical school is not going to happen right now. And so I leaned more into the medical writing. So during my PhD, obviously, like I published some papers. The PI that was supervising that paper, she was very like happy with how I wrote it. Obviously, I was native English compared to the other PhD students, so it's a different level of like how the paper was written.
How did you decide to leave?
Yeah, so I did complete my PhD, so it wasn't that I left, like dropped out. But yeah, I started editing. So once people saw that I was able to I wrote well because we published that paper, my colleagues started asking me to edit their PhD dissertations, because the editor that the research institute had that they knew would have charged them like $1,000 more to edit this thesis, right? And as a PhD student on a grant, we were only making $1,200 or euros like a month, right? So it's like we were really reluctant to give up an entire month's salary to edit the PhD, which in theory nobody's going to read, right? And so I offered to edit their PhDs. I did. Yeah, it was like three friends that I edited their PhDs, and obviously that's a lot of experience, editing experience. And then I finished my PhD. I got this other, so now I was on like maternity leave with my second child by the time I finished. And I landed a 3-month contract with McGill University, where I did my master's and my bachelor's, to migrate some animal use protocols. And so those 3 experiences combined, the migrating the animal use protocols, the AMWA certificates, and the editing PhDs, my colleagues' PhDs, was what I had as a base to land my first editing service agreement on retainer. And they're still one of my main clients today. And we're 3 years later.
And that's McGill?
No, sorry, the research institute where I did my PhD at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was 3 months postpartum, 3 months postpartum, and this opportunity came up. So my husband's PI, we met at the lab. She also knew that I was like training to be a medical writer. And when the editor they had for years decided to retire, she messaged us and she was like, Rosalba, you should apply, propose yourself as like a substitute since you have internal training. And I was like, yeah, that would be perfect, right? So obviously the research director was like, you'd be the perfect candidate because you know intimately what each PI, what their goals are, and so 3 months postpartum, I was like, I don't want to lose this opportunity. Sometimes life hands you opportunities and you just have to make the sacrifice and take it, no matter how untimely or that it's not perfect timing. You just have to take it. So I took it. I needed to whip up some sort of contract. So now I took all the information that the AMWA veterans had, all the tips and tricks that they have had, or lessons that they learned throughout their 20 years of career. So implemented some of that. I dove deep on Reddit to find what else. What are pain points? What are problems that editors have that I can avoid? Some lessons that they've learned that I don't have to go through because they're giving me the information so I can work that into my contract to protect myself. So I created this like whole contract. And I think they must have been surprised maybe when I sent it to them, and they were like, yeah, we need to pass this through legal. And they did, and they reviewed it, and we made some like minor, obviously minor modifications of things that I hadn't thought about explicitly stating. But it's been really helpful having that contract. So it's very detailed, and it's protected me from scope creep, right? And I've used it again and again, just like slightly modifying it for different clients if they need modifications.
How did that work? You said that you were on retainer.
Yeah. So a retainer service agreement is when it avoids you having to keep searching for work, because it's like you're on contract kind of thing. So the way I like to explain it is I'm their go-to editor. So I edit all the manuscripts. This research institute, for example, has 8 labs. So all the manuscripts that they produce come through me before they get published. There's different types of retainers. Sometimes retainers they have specific time frames or a certain number of hours. So it could be like, you want to dedicate 10 hours a week or 15 hours a month, example, or you edit, or it can be by deliverable. So that you edit 3 manuscripts per month, or however the case may be. The way I have my contract formatted, and I like it, is that they just send it to me whenever they have papers. Obviously, publications, you can't judge when those publications are going to come in. So I've been working with them long enough to know that on average, I get 2 to 3 manuscripts a month from that research institute. And so that's how I judge balance my time with other clients. But I've learned to also not reserve blocks of time out for clients, because sometimes things happen and then they get canceled or pushed back. And so I just have like this running like queue. I don't plan way ahead of time unless it's like an advisory board meeting or something that's really set in stone. But for manuscripts, I just take them as I go. And if I'm already working on one, I'll advise the client, well, okay, you're next, I'll get to you as soon as I can.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're still getting paid, by the project, by the word, however you're billing it. But the retainer is more that you're, like you said, you're their go-to person. Is that right?
So yes. Okay. How else can I explain this? So I invoice after each manuscript. So each manuscript is like its own project. But since the overall scope, let's say, of all the manuscripts is similar, like I have we ended up creating like 2 tiers of services. So my basic or standard editing, so I do substantive editing, just to clarify. So I have like a lot of different points, let's say, that I cover in my substantive editing. And then since my PhD expertise is in that subject, it's in my niche, I also give that extra constructive feedback. So I'm also acting like a reviewer too, even though they're not expecting me to. But if there's something, that's off or needs better explaining, I'll kind of like leave a constructive comment on how they can improve the manuscript.
You're probably a nice reviewer too, though.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because sometimes if they don't, researchers are like they have their heart set on saying it a certain way. And then you're like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense. If you're like looking at it from an outside perspective, you need to explain or elaborate it a certain way. Like just reframe it. It's just how it's positioned. Like the information is the same. It's just how it's, explained to somebody else. And they haven't taken my constructive criticism. And then sometimes they ask me to review the response to the reviewers, and I see what the reviewers were. I'm like, I told you guys to do this. Why didn't you listen? Yeah.
So how did you, so you started editing for the Institute. Then what happened? Did you bring in more editing clients or more medical writing, or how did you progress to creating your first business?
So that was, I kind of consider that like the inception of the business. Like they were my first client, and I've gone on to make, I want to say like over 60, probably I've edited 60 manuscripts for them so far. And yeah, like I've made over like $50,000 with just that client alone.
Wow.
For sure. And then so I just added other clients as I went along, like other opportunities came my way. I had the opportunity to write blog posts for Merck.
Oh, wow.
So that was really cool. Yeah. Merck MSD Animal Health. So since I had a master's in animal science, I was essentially writing blogs to teach vets about like vaccination or like poultry vaccination. Right. So I would structure the blog like a certain way. One thing that I'd love to talk about is how some clients give you creative freedom, whereas others give you a very structured or have very structured expectations. And so I position myself as someone who likes to have creative freedom. So like that they can just trust me, like, and like they give me, for example, the blogs, they would just give me the meta description, which is like a two sentence overview of what the blog would be and some keywords. And then I got to develop the rest by myself.
Yeah. And so, okay, so you kept bringing in, how did these people find you? Was it primarily referral, or were you applying to like the Merck job and others, or how were you growing the business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So having a really good LinkedIn presence and or a website. So I didn't have the website right away, but I did have my LinkedIn, like a lot of information on my LinkedIn page. And that's helped bring in clients to me. So I'm not actively marketing. Like, yeah, I should rephrase that. I'm not actively marketing my medical writing business. Like I'm more focusing on the coaching business right now. But my medical writing business, I've been fortunate enough to have the clients come to me because I've positioned myself. Like I have all the keywords, let's say, on my LinkedIn portfolio. And so when recruiters are searching for medical writers, my profile comes up.
It's interesting. So they're using LinkedIn as a search engine, basically, instead of like going to Google or something like that.
Yeah, well, if they go to Google, my profile is public, so it would come up. Anyways. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've gotten jobs that way, like agencies reaching out. I haven't had much luck with recruiters. I've had calls with recruiters, but it hasn't landed any jobs. Others through networking as well. So I've gotten jobs from daycare, at my great uncle's funeral. Like you can meet, I know, it's really weird. I wasn't marketing. It was just my cousins, like one of my third cousins introduced me to a friend who was like, oh yeah, she knows somebody who works at this like pharmaceutical company. You should connect. And I was like, okay.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest concerns among new business owners is feeling like sleazy about marketing themselves or something. But yeah, you should never feel embarrassed to talk about who you are and what you do, right? Even if you're at a funeral. Exactly. It's not like you were going around giving out your business card or something.
No,
maybe don't do that.
I was just catching up with my cousin because I hadn't seen him in literally decades. And he's a lawyer in Germany. And so he has a lot of good connections. And I was just telling him, and he caught on to my energy. And, like he saw that, like the professionalism and everything. And he's like, yeah, you should meet so-and-so. And I was like, okay. And then the other funny one was at daycare, at my daughter's daycare Christmas party. So there was another dad who was like on the floor, let's say, like with his daughter, and he spoke to his daughter in Spanish. And I had like something that was like kind of pushing me to like speak to this man like before, but I never had the opportunity to. So when I heard him speak Spanish, I introduced myself. I'm like, oh, are you from Spain? And he said, yeah. He's like, I'm from Barcelona, whatever. And so we connected like on that. You always have to have like some sort of connection point is really helpful. And so we got to talking, and then I asked him like, oh, like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm a gynecologist at one of the hospitals. And I was like, no way. I specialize in reproductive medicine. And then we got to talking, and turns out he had some manuscripts that needed to be edited. And he works at one of the main fertility clinics in Montreal. And I was like, boom, perfect.
That's great. I love that story. So I mean, you describe on your website that this was a multi-6-figure business. Is that's when you say that you're referring to all the medical writing and the editing together?
Yes. Yeah. So I actually do writing, editing, and illustrations, scientific illustrations. Yeah. So since I went to art school, I had that background. The scientific illustrations actually came up, I want to say by fluke. It wasn't my intention because I never knew that field existed. Like I left art school because I was like, I don't want to be the starving artist, right? I was like, I'll probably have better career opportunities in science. And I never knew, well, at least back in 2012, it wasn't evident that there was this science, like medical illustration programs. Now there are at the University of Toronto and stuff. But yeah, back then I didn't know of any.
I love that about business that, I think in academia, we're so pigeonholed into like specializing in this one particular area. And we are so busy that we have to often set aside our other hobbies and interests. And I love that about business, that it lets so many people tap into those things that they used to love doing, our previous passions, that we've had to neglect for so many years. Like I often thought if I hadn't gone to be a professor, I might have gone into web design or something. And I always I did the department website for, when I was in the PhD program, and very amateurish, but I enjoyed it. And so I love that having a business lets me work in Canva and work on my website and, tap into that kind of creativity that I wasn't able to do as a professor. So it's great to hear that you're able to get back to that.
Yeah. And that's essentially how the FLAS Foundation was born. So the FLAS Foundation, the FLAS stands for the love of arts and science, because I want to bring together this community of people, of like scientists or any STEM professionals that do have this creative background. But we were always like you just said, told that it had to be either. It couldn't be both and.
And so what is the FLAS Foundation, and how did you create it?
So that came, that started very innocently. I was in another, in a mentoring, a group coaching program for medical writers, and providing a lot of value there. And so people were recognizing or acknowledging the value that I brought. I also, because I was further along in my business journey than they were just starting off. So they were looking up to me. And it was as innocent as somebody from that coaching space had someone reach out to her for some sort of medical writing opportunity. And that girl knew that I was growing this medical communications agency, and that my business approach was that I wanted to have both junior medical writers and also seasoned or experienced medical writers, editors, whatever, on my team. Because when you subcontract, there's a different different level of hand holding, right? So somebody who has more experience, I'm more comfortable just handing something off to them and giving them more freedom, versus somebody who I'm teaching how to do something and I have to be more on top of, if you will. And so she knew that I was giving junior medical writers a chance. So when somebody reached out to her for a job opportunity, or if she knew anybody, she referred her to me. And so I innocently was yeah, sure, I'll mentor you. And it started from there. I just gathered all the resources that I had. I've always been a teacher. I've been teaching different levels, all the way from grade 5 to high school to university. So it came second nature to me to just gather everything I had and, teach someone else. It's also one of the AMWA values is to teach the next generation medical writers to pass the baton, if you will, or give the newbies a chance. And so she was my very first mentoring client, and it started as one-on-one sessions, and all I needed to start that was Calendly and Zoom. That's all you need to start mentoring. Yeah.
And well, even editing or coaching, any kind of editing or coaching, I think that certainly for me, when I thought about starting a business, it seemed very intimidating, that you're going to need all of these things. And that's one of the most common questions I get is, do I have to start an LLC? Do I have to get an accountant? Do I have to do all these things? And I would say, no, you don't have to. I mean, it helps to get an accountant if you're going to get anything.
Yeah. Accounting definitely helps.
Just to do my taxes at the end of the year so I don't have to makes it so much easier, and it's worth, saving that time. But yeah, you need a laptop and Microsoft Word. And if you're coaching, doing Zoom and Calendly, or I like TidyCal, but
not even, you don't even need that. You could just set them manually, right? So it's just somewhere to meet people. And that could be, if you don't want to pay for Zoom, that could be in Google Meet or another platform.
Yeah. And beyond that, you already have the knowledge and the experience, and especially for people who want to coach like on publishing or time management in academia or something like that, right? If you've something that you've already figured out how to do and to be very good at, you can teach that to somebody else because like you said, you've been a teacher, you know how to be a teacher. I also love. Oh, go ahead.
Just like one thing that one of my mentors told me, and that stuck with me, is that you only need to be 10 steps ahead of your ideal client to be of like 100% service to them. Or 10% ahead of your ideal client to be 100% service to them.
Yeah, you don't have to be like, have 20 years of experience in something to teach it to somebody else. Yeah, if you've walked this path of figuring out, I think you said earlier you did an internet search and you found the website that said 16 ways to use your science degree or something like that, right? Yeah. You've done all that, the heavy lifting of that internet research, which is it's very time consuming. I know from experience, Googling remote work editor or something like that, it's a lot to sift through all that. And you built your own business. That's all you need to have done to teach it to somebody else.
Yeah.
I also love that, you point out that you've had success in having clients find you, and now you have a business where it's an agency model, and you're hiring other editors and other writers. And I feel like there's such a widespread attitude at least among academic editors. What I've seen is that a lot of people feel like this business is failing and there's no work out there, and there's no clients, and AI is taking over. And that is not what I've experienced at all. I've been very lucky as well, or I've cracked the code on marketing or whatever. I have more people coming to me than I can do work for. And so I love hearing that you've had such success, because it refutes that myth that, this is not a profitable business to be in.
Absolutely. And that's one of like the main pillars of my coaching business, is that one of my, I guess, controversial beliefs is that you don't have to send 100 cold pitches a week to land clients. And I am like the perfect example of that's not true. I've been doing this for 5 years now, and I've literally sent out maybe 10 pitches in 5 years.
Yeah.
So as long as if you can learn how to write a persuasive pitch and pitch to the right people, then you don't have to waste the time and energy constantly like pitching. And then it's so stressful, right? I can just imagine like sending out all these pitches and then you're like holding your breath, like, oh my God, are they going to answer? And then they don't, because it's a cold pitch. And then you get discouraged. And it's just like this terrible like hamster wheel.
So what do you think? Do you mind sharing what you think is key to either a persuasive LinkedIn profile or a persuasive pitch or something like that? What do you think people should be emphasizing in these?
Oh, good question. So on my LinkedIn profile, just like all the different skills, like sometimes a lot of, or like at least the clients that I've worked with, they have a hard time recognizing or translating the skills that they already have. Like we learn so much in academia, and especially if you've done your PhD, like there's like project management skills and like all this stuff that you learn, but you just need to learn how to explain it to a non-academic audience, right? So at the end of the day, like, yes, it's very good that we publish, right? But what does what skills did you learn in writing that manuscript or publishing, right? So there's like critical thinking, literature reviews, like synthesizing all the information or the important information in a way that's easy to understand and follow. And so all those are really important skills that you should, that you should highlight. For editing, attention to detail, right, is a good skill. Critical thinking as well, being able to like work on a team, or like communication skills, right? Because you don't want to be leaving nasty comments. You want to like
be supportive of the, almost like a teacher, I think, for a lot of, it seems like a lot of comments that editors leave for academic writers is you're explaining. I remember the agencies would always say, don't use you or I, like don't direct the comment to the author. It's more like make it about the writing as opposed to the author as a person.
I just give direct suggestions. So I was like, sorry. It's like say, oh, like you can improve this by doing that, or yeah, it depends. So I've gotten pushback from people. So when I first started, so now it's like I was a PhD student and now I'm going critiquing the PI's like work, right? And so that was a power struggle that we needed to like balance out at the beginning, because I was doing with the best intentions and I'm trying to do it objectively, right? Looking at this manuscript, like if it was mine, how would I feel comfortable sending this to be published, right? And I'm a perfectionist, so I hold things to very high standards. And
did you get clients that said, "Oh, you're just a PhD student," or
no, in the sense that when I first started, because the editor that they had previously, there's different types of editors. There's the ones that prefer leaving comments and they just like don't go into it. And I'm very much like, I'd rather go into it and make the changes directly, because if I just leave the comment and be like, oh, you should do this better transition, they might not know what a transition is, right? So I prefer for it to be visual. And then if they don't like it, then we can fix it afterwards, right? Because if I tell them, oh, you should phrase it something like this, and then they put it, but then they add spelling mistakes, that's not going to help us, right? So it's more efficient for me, I found, was that I just go make the changes directly. So when they got their papers back, it was like a lot of red, and they were not used to that. And so they were like, but we just want you to correct the English. We don't want you to edit like the science or, like change the concepts, they were telling me. And I'm like, I'm not changing the concepts. I'm trying to clarify them. And that shifted when one paper, after I had done substantive edits on, was accepted and published within 2 weeks. Then they were like, oh, maybe she's onto something.
That's awesome. What a great, a testimonial to be able to use that it turned around that quickly.
Yeah. And so one of your questions was how, like what metrics or how I market myself as an editor. And so that ties into this. So I have this huge Airtable spreadsheet. Like Airtable is like a database, online database. And so I track all my projects in there, my project manager, if you will. And so I have, let's say, the title, the journal that it's published in, the link, if it's already published, the date that they sent it to me, the date that I sent it back, the date that it was published. So I can track all these metrics. And so I obviously it took a while, like the first year or so to get a good number. But after the first year, I realized, oh, wow, like 80% of the manuscripts that I've edited have gotten published, which is good. And then they're also getting published in as little as 2 to 4 weeks, which is good, right? And most of them are for Q1 journals. So that's like my marketing catchphrase, or like phrase, like I can help you, or it's my authority line, sorry, as an editor. So I help researchers get published in Q1 journals in as little as 2 to 4 weeks.
That's really impressive. I have an Excel sheet where I've tracked every project I've ever worked on, and I keep track of I track my time, and it calculates out the editing speed in words per hour and whatever the hourly rate ends up being. And that's been really helpful because it let me see, when I was still working for agencies and academic presses, that, even though I really loved working for some academic press, I was consistently only making $40 an hour. And as I was getting more and more private clients where I was making $100 an hour or more, I realized I love editing these books for this publisher, but it doesn't make sense, and I had to let it go because it just wasn't worth the time anymore. I could make so much more by working for these private clients. But yeah, that's awesome that you've tracked that level of detail and now can use those metrics in your marketing. Yeah. So speaking of marketing, how did you learn marketing?
I never went to business school. I didn't have any business or marketing classes at all. Because like I said, I was always in arts and science, and I had to work with my academic counselors to be able to fit those into my schedule. Like they made me like a unique schedule, like in high school and college, to be able to fit both of those in, because usually those are two separate paths. So 6 months into my business, so after with just that first like editing client, I hit burnout because they obviously had a lot of work accumulated. And so there was like a flood of like manuscripts like in those first couple months. And again, I was freshly postpartum. Like I was by the time I hit like my burnout, my baby was 6, 7, 8, like 8 months old still. So I should have been on maternity leave. And then so I guess
hear that I had really tough postpartum periods and no sleep. My kids didn't sleep.
Yeah. And so mix that in. So starting a new business, we were moving from Spain to Canada. We got married, we baptized the kids. It was like a lot, a lot of things that happened that October 2022 I'm still recovering from. But yeah, it was just a lot. And so when I hit that breaking point, I was like, something needs to change. And I was doom scrolling one night and came across that first medical writing mentor. And I was like, oh, maybe, working with a mentor can help me with my business, and help me figure out those pieces that I was missing, like the website. And I just felt like I had started, but there could have been like improvements. In that coaching program, I feel like I learned, like she planted seeds of like marketing concepts. And then I took the initiative and really dove deep on my own time to try to figure everything out. And I really wanted to feel like I had a very solid business foundation before I grew or before I pitched any more clients. So I was like, okay, I have enough to keep me going. I was working pretty much full time with the clients, like between the Merck and the other research, the research groups. So I had income, and I was like, before I go out and get more clients, let me organize myself before. Like the way I thought of it is like building the foundation to a house. I was like, you need to build a solid foundation before you can build the walls and, invite people in. And so, yeah, that I guess I was stuck in that for almost a year. I want to say all of 2024 was doing a deep dive into literally every single business component. So marketing, SEO, web design, like all of the things to feel like, okay, I know enough. Now I can move forward.
And so tell us what you do with the FLAS Foundation. How do you work with clients?
Yeah, I love that. So I have different programs. The first one that I started was the community, right? And so again, I had never built an online community. And in fact, I did it despite my previous mentor telling me, you can't build anything within 5 years. It's not going to be like profitable. You're not going to get anybody. I was like, watch me. And sure enough, I had people like, I just planted, I wrote a LinkedIn post and just planted like a seed of being like, I have this idea. Would anybody be interested in joining me? And sure enough, there was other people who had bad experiences with the mentor, and they were like, came like running to me because they knew that I was the one helping them in the other space. And again, so I had invested in another mentor at that point to help me build out this other like coaching business, because obviously it's a different skill. So I have a community. So that's the Sure Strides Society. And in that space, I give early business owners all the resources and tools to save them the year of research that I did. And we meet every week. And so they're like intimate meetings. And we meet for an hour, sometimes two, and just talk about like, we keep each other accountable and see like what progress have we made during the week? Like, where are we stuck and how can we move forward?
And how long do they join for? Is it like for a year, or what's the...
So I have some of my OG clients that have been with me for over a year. And so we recently celebrated, I think, 60 meetings.
Wow.
So they've been with me religiously every week for the last 60 weeks, which I thought was really nice.
So is it set up like a monthly membership?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's a monthly membership. Originally, so the plan that they are on didn't have an end date. But since then, I've kind of limited and made like a 3-month plan and a 6-month plan, because I want people now to graduate into the next steps. So
that's wonderful.
I also offer a VIP intensive, which is for people who need rapid, rapid transformation and they want it done like now. So it's like a full day thing, like a 9 to 3. And we do a deep dive, and we get, depending on where the person is. So for example, the one that I recently did, we did like an audit of her LinkedIn and her profile and repositioned, highlighted some skills that were not on there and positioned her. She was charging under $100, and I showed her how she could charge $300 with the skills that she has.
That's wonderful. And so it sounds like you're taking people who are in STEM, who are scientists, who want to do exactly what you did, right? Move into the business space. Are they all going into medical writing or editing, or what are some of the other jobs that they're going into?
Yeah, absolutely. So like the original clients, the first clients that I have were mainly medical writers because we met in that other container. But I've opened it to all STEM and healthcare professionals because now I'm teaching people how to land speaking opportunities or do workshop facilitation, consulting, right? So that opens it up. It could be anyone. It could be an engineer, it could be a mathematician, right? It's just like positioning you for industry, like freelance industry jobs, let's say.
I love that. It sounds like we actually have a lot of overlap, but I'm more in the social sciences, humanities space, and helping people launch academic editing businesses. And then I have a membership as well for people who are already working as editors or coaches, and learning marketing and how to put themselves out there and all of that. So
there's definitely a lot of moving pieces. I will admit that there's a lot of moving pieces, and it can feel overwhelming. Right. To think that like I have to learn number one, learn all the separate pieces and then how they fit together on the back end. Right. If you're building a website, or for example, I'm using Kajabi because it was like an all-in-one platform. So I have my community, I have my website, there's email marketing. Right. And the email marketing was very intimidating for me for a really long time. And then I decided, I'm like, okay, there's obviously some block for me to do it. So I just outsourced it. I was like, okay, this is something that somebody else can do for me.
Yeah, it's there are a lot of moving parts, and I feel like when I was an editor, before I had launched this program, it was so much easier. You know, it was so much easier. You just had your email and my Excel spreadsheet, and like I just brought in clients. I had my website, but you dealt with one client at a time, and you invoiced them, and you got paid. And now with courses, there's definitely a lot more marketing that goes into it, and figuring out how to frame your messaging and your benefit, what people are going to get out of the program, and figuring out just how to speak to them about how they can transform their lives if they take this leap. And I feel like, I don't know, one of the challenges I've had is a lot of people out there who sell online courses and coaching programs, they're selling to people who are already business owners, like here's a course for you to learn Airtable, or here's a course for you to learn copywriting or whatever. And I feel like that's not a hard sell, but like what you and I are doing is we're basically trying to convince people to leave their careers that they thought they would have for their entire lives and go in and launch a business, which feels very risky. I mean, you and I know that it can be very profitable, but and it's not as scary as you thought, but or as I thought, but it feels scary when you haven't done it. So I don't know. Have you felt that? Has that been a struggle for you? Like this, this trying to sell this idea of leaving academia and going into business, or how does that work for you?
Okay, so I'm not trying to convince people to leave academia. I'm just trying to work with the people that already have left academia.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because that's a different audience. So I'm not looking, I don't close the door completely, but my ideal client is not somebody who's still in the very, very early stages, who doesn't have the LLC set up and all that. So I'm looking for people with like that, maybe already have the LLC set up, maybe have already started to work with clients, and then they're in this, okay, what now stage.
That makes sense.
That they need like the support and the community to like keep going, because working from home can be lonely, right? And we just stay in our rooms, and then we're like, oh, we need to see people and not stay sitting down at our desk all day. So that's more my target audience.
Okay, so they've already decided, or they've already left, and they've taken those first steps. Maybe they're 6 months in or something like that, and they're feeling overwhelmed by having to figure out the marketing and everything. And okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been really enlightening. I think it's so great to hear your journey. And it's nice for me to talk to somebody else who does something similar to what I do too. So maybe tell us, if you were to talk to someone who was thinking about taking this leap into business from some kind of academic job, what would you tell them? What's a piece of advice? How can they get started, or how can they maybe get over any kind of mindset issues or fears about doing it? What would you say to somebody who's thinking about just starting out?
So the mindset and fears could be a whole other podcast, but if it has to be something quick, it's just like talk about what you do, network, and take the opportunities when they come, when they present themselves, even if they might seem like, even if it is a little bit of a sacrifice. Sometimes we do have to make those sacrifices at the beginning to get the ball rolling. But then once you have that, even I'm not a fan, like I don't want to tell people to take the cheap jobs, but sometimes there's opportunities that you have to balance gaining experience versus like getting paid in experience versus getting paid like in cash. And so sometimes if you want to learn a skill, you need to invest that time and energy to master that skill. And then you can turn around and charge 10 times more for that. So.
Yeah, that's great advice. And if anybody wants to work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, you can DM me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or on our website, and our handle is @FLAS Foundation. So FLAS Foundation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rosalba.
Thank you.
If you're unhappy in academia and you think you might be a good editor or writing coach, check out my course, Becoming an Academic Editor. This digital course is paired with a 12-week group coaching program to support you through your decision to leave academia or not, and to start building a profitable and rewarding academic editing business. Learn more by going to acadiaediting.com/become an editor. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.